I think it started, hopefully. Yeah, I am live. Hello. Yep, I am live. Hopefully here as well. Yeah, cool. Okay, let's see at the home. It's working here. All right. Embed the chat, launch it. Pick it like this. Then there is going to be uh that is my thing. This is online store. Let's see. Yeah, exit. That is good. Here it is. We'll make it like this. All right, so for the change of pace, there will be some sort of like a, today I just simply want to do remix, right? This is one of the contender, right? Or competitor for the Next.js framework for the React. So I simply wanted to go through this 30 minutes tutorial today, and that's about it. Nothing more than that. I tried to do the streaming for the public building, but something broke, and then the time for this came up. So I thought, why not do this? I'll restart that event tomorrow. Hello. Yeah, the voice is fine. Okay, we can just begin. Oh, cool. So this is our remix tutorial, and basically it says I'm just going to go through this whole thing, and that's about it. This is quite an old framework, to be honest. It's been at least 1.5 years, and I worked with its version, I think this one and this one, and after that I didn't do anything. So I wanted to see what this is all about in terms of version 2.1.0. That's it. All right. So I have a directory which has nothing, and this is where I will be working. So let's go. Let's see what we are going to build. We are going to build a small but feature rich app that lets you keep track of its contacts. Okay, it's a contact management app. Cool. There's no database or other production ready thing, so we can stay focused on remix. Okay, we expect to take about 30 minutes if you're following along, otherwise it's a quick read. All right, so let's start with this whole thing. Generate a basic template. Okay, every time you say this, it means you need to do something in the app. The rest is just there for your information and deeper understanding. Let's go with this. Okay, start the app, cd, whatever you put in the app, install and run. All right, so let's see. Remix tutorial, contact app. Yep, yep. Then we can actually do with this run. All right, let's let it install, and then we'll simply open it in our VS Code. My mic setup has gone bad, I believe. I don't know. you will also find a lot of background noise. And since my health is not like that good, so little bit of low voice as well. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just do this just for the heck of it. And yeah, I think this is good to go. Okay, it is taking a long time. All right, it's done. So let's go inside the contact app and we'll open it inside our VS Code. Okay, this is it. So, all right, fine. Fine. We have this app. It has this sizing and everything. We have this root and everything. We have this data. I think this is just a starter for this particular tutorial, so we will simply work with that only, and let's run. Now we can look into things that I want to do. Is one thing, before I start this, I'll just go inside my mobile and try to enter this IP. Pretty sure there's a way that we can actually run our app in mobile from local. Well, that is happening. Let's open this. So here we can do this, and here we are. This is exactly what it says, and yeah, so it is quite fine. That's good. Let's move ahead. The root route. Note the file at app root tsx. This is what we call the root route. It's the first component in the UI that renders, so it typically contains a global layout for the page. All right, so this is it. And all right, so from remix run, we are getting the forms, links, live reload, meta, hopefully for the meta API, scripts for loading the scripts, scroll restoration, no idea what this is all about, live reload, maybe HMR, links, we all know, form is, I think, remix inbuilt form, it must be Sublime. And then we are returning, okay, so we are also returning the HTML. This meta is like this, so hopefully this is like a meta for everything. This is for page wise meta, and this is for page wise links, which we can include inside the head. Then we have a body which has a sidebar of remix contact. Then there's a form with the ID role. It has the input of ID. Okay, our real label is search contacts, placeholder type, okay, name is Q, so anytime we put anything here, it will be kind of like a get request with a Q, question mark Q equals, or question mark Q equals, and something like that. And we have a spinner, so aria hidden is true. Then there's another form with the method of post, so this is by default method of get. This has a button of submit. Why not inside, like why not both? Anyways, then we have this a tag, and this is a tag. Okay, we have the scroll restoration, scripts, and live view. Fine. Okay, then here to see the root component code. Adding styles with links. While there are multiple ways to style your remix app, we are going to use a plain style sheet that's already been written to keep things focused on remix. So you can import CSS files directly into JavaScript modules. Like any other framework, this is the same. The compiler will fingerprint the asset, save it to your asset build directory, and provide your module with the publicly accessible href. Okay. 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 So this is going to be inside the links function is a type. They're exporting this, and then it's kind of like an array with the relationship of style sheet and href. So let's just do that. Hopefully I understand it like kind of like fine. At the very top, I'll do this import link function. Let's see what it is. Link function from node. Yeah, link function from remix run node. And then here it is going to be export const links of type link function, links function. Then this will be basically this. No, it's a function. Okay, it's a function which is going to return an array with relation of style sheet and what else is there? Href. Okay, href of some styles. So here I can import app styles from app CSS and then simply pass this, save it, go back, refresh. Cool. But it did not like reload. In the declaration only for types, use import. Yeah, quick fix, and that's about it. Let's see. Cool. This is contact 1, this is contact 2, this is search, this is new. All right. The app should look something like this now. It sure is a nice having a designer who can also write CSS. Acha. The contact UI route. If you click on the sidebar, you will get a default 404 page. Hello. Hi, Prakhar Gupta. Hi. Yes. We can completely ditch MacBooks after WSL? I don't. I hope you mean, can we ditch MacBooks after WSL? Yes, we can. There's. I mean, I have both of them. MacBook through my office, Windows through this particular, like my own. There's literally no difference whatsoever while working with WSL, which is basically a Linux, and Mac OS. Not to mention in Windows laptop, you can actually game as well. In case you see, this is the game part, right? And WSL is basically what I can use in order to program. So yeah, you don't need MacBook. If you, I mean, technically you don't, if you don't want to game and the only thing is that you wanted to focus on programming, let's put it that way, and you want to have a complete coverage in terms of, let's say in future, if you ever want to build an iOS app or want to test things in Safari browser, then yes, you can have the MacBook, which will be helpful. In terms of hardware, MacBook is way too good compared to any Windows laptop. All right, like MacBook is greater in terms of hardware, in terms of its audio quality, in terms of its screen quality, in terms of its things like that. It is way better. But no, if you only want to have like for programming, then WSL is good. Okay, so now we have to create app routes directory and contact route module. Let's create a route that matches the URL. Okay. In the remix route file convention, dot will create a slash, okay, in the URL, and dollar makes a segment dynamic. Okay, we just created a route that will match URLs that looks like this. So let's go here, remove it. I think it's app routes, and then it's touch app routes, then you have contacts, this, and dollar contact ID .tsx. All right, let's go back to this thing. We have routes, and within that we have nothing. Okay, this was bad. Let's remove this first. App routes contacts, and do this. Touch. Let's see, do we have okay, so like we have this, and then within that we have a contacts dot contact ID. This is tricky. Let's rename this, make it as um hmm, this does not make sense. Let's move this one to this. Okay, now it is working fine. All right, then we are going to go here. Okay, so it's a bunch of elements. Feel free to copy and paste. There's no point in copy and pasting, so let's just see what it is. Form is coming from React, I mean remix, run, and React. Then you have a function component type, which is coming from React. We have an export of default of contact, which is returning this, which is an image. There's a contact first, contact last, contact first. I mean, if both of them are present in this, otherwise no name. Then you have a favorite, which is passing as a contract, and then you have a contact.twitter. All of these are coming from here. Okay, then there's also a contact record type, which is coming from data, but don't see where it is being utilized. I mean, it's just a bunch of structure, and then you have this as form. Action is edit, this is weird action. Button is submit. Then you have form, which is action of destroy. Okay, And on submit, we are getting the response from confirm, which is an browser API. It's a very old browser API, which basically allows, like, it's kind of like an assertion whether you press, if you press yes, then it goes ahead and performs whatever is the, uh, I mean, based on the response, it performs the action. One thing that I'm noticing is that most of the remix thing, if I remove this form, most of it is bare bone JavaScript. Like a large majority of the remix is basically just JavaScript, and seems like it is using some sort of like a normal semantic HTML and things like that. Okay, this is a contact, it favorites, then it is favorite, then it is favorite. So okay, so let me just copy this, and I'll just simply copy and paste this. We'll go back, run, refresh. All right, so at least the contact is here. Now we simply have to make sure that this is actually working. So we have to make sure that this is our root layout. So I'm hoping that in this root layout, this is my contact, this is remix contact, this is a form, which is an input error, this is a navigation. Pretty sure we have to have something somewhere here. Pretty sure about it. Something has to be put here. Can we export it? Can we import it? Let's see. Okay, this is aria label, this is favorite, remove from. Yeah, by the way, this aria label is basically for accessibility. It's something called aria attributes, not aria brand. This is in aria attributes. It's enable modifying an HTML states and properties as defined in accessibility tree. It stands for accessible rich internet application. It is like something that you can, in this MDN docs, you can actually look into it. There are a bunch of them, right? And if you look here, this is the aria label. This is what we are trying to use here, aria label. And if you go back, you'll find the aria label attribute defines a string value that labels an interactive element. Sometimes the default accessible name of an element is missing or does not accurately describe its content, and there's no content visible to the in the DOM that can be associated with the object to give it meaning. A common example is a button containing an SVG or icon font, which you shouldn't be using without any text, things like that. So basically you have to define some sort of like a meaning, so that, I mean, these are for screen readers, things like that, accessible tools, which is like, for us it does not matter, but for the screen reader and those sort of softwares it matters. I'm not into where is coming here, surfing, no problem. Can you also cover TypeScript in depth? Yeah, that's, I mean, that's one of the plan. Basically all of my, see, the TypeScript thing is something that I don't actually learn, Dipanshu. Basically what I did was, how to put it, so there are two category of TypeScript. There's a TypeScript that you require if you are building a library so that others can use. For example, if you're building some sort of like any sort of npm library, let's say stack, okay, let's assume this is your so-called library, and if you're building this, then yes, you require a huge knowledge of TypeScript, right? But if you're building an application using these libraries or React or Remix or things like that, you technically don't require much of a knowledge of TypeScript. What you require is basically whatever is, it then becomes kind of like a team-based activity. So basically if everybody is if everybody understands what they are doing, most likely you need things like this sort of things, like for example this sort of things, right? You define certain things, okay, and then yeah, you simply are going to do very little bit of TypeScript, and that means a lot of that a lot of TypeScript that you will use will then become with you don't have to explicitly define it, like you don't have to do these things for a lot of time. Like if you're using something called, I don't know whether it works here or not, but let's say if you're saying count, set count, use state, okay, and say 0. If you look here, you don't have to define explicitly here that this is going to be a number, right? Why? Because this is inferred by the latest TypeScript compiler itself. See, this is by default a number. So most of the time you will be using things like that in application, and sometimes there are only 2 or 3 things that you actually require TypeScript for. One is where you define the type, or second is where you define the interface, and that's about it. Either you define a type, or which is type concatenation, union, and things like that, or you simply have to do like some sort of like interface. Even things like that is also not required, right? These things most of the time you don't actually do it, and if you do it, it's a very case-wise basis, depends on the app. Yeah, for application, like I said, it depends on the app that you're using, and it is very low of the things, very less. So yes, to answer your question, can you also cover the TypeScript? I can. I can create a crash course if you want about it, based on the experience as to what exactly is required in terms of application. Things like generics and decorators not required, not for the most part, no. For the most part, no. Generics and decorators are mostly utilized if you're building a library, in my experience. But if you're doing like 90% of the times, you are only going to be using the primitive types and type operator and the interface, these two, and their operation, interfaces and types operation for sure. Sometime you will use something like record, pick, or omit, things like that, but no, not in that depth. And if it is required, say 1 or 2%, then ChatGPT or Google or Stack Overflow can always work in your favor. It's not much of a deal, because in the end the application is being written for you and your team, so that you can get the help, right? And library is written for unknown number of users. That is a different scale, and the application is like less bit of in scale. And the best way to actually, well, how to put it, the best way to actually understand what is what, for the most part, for example, this is link, which is says links function. If I just remove this, right, see, nothing is actually, basically nothing is happening. The type here is like going haywire, and it is like not good. But if I go here, this is a link descriptor. If I go here, this is HTML link descriptor, page link. Go here, see, these people are building the library, and therefore they are the ones who are doing this many things. For the most part, none of us have to do go this deep, but yes, maybe I can do it. I'll see. If I get the time, I'll do it, no problem. See, just to make sure what is the generics. So if you look at this function component, is a type that is being imported right here, right? So this is actually taking a generic. If you think about it, this function component is actually taking a generic, which is in this case this. So this function component, if I go inside, where it is right here, if I go inside this function component, you will see it is taking a generic, right, which is defined as p, but it is basically a generic. Now this can be anything, and therefore in our case it is this. Okay, this is a contact, which is this pick. Now what is pick? Pick is basically saying from here, whatever this is, pick only the favorite part, and that's about it. So if I close this and if I go right at the bottom, you'll find that this is a contact record. Contact record has this, meaning everything that is present here is present here, and then it overwrites the ID and it makes this ID as required. Here the question mark represents the optional thing in TypeScript, so maybe you don't have to supply ID, everything is work, right? Everything will work, but here it says the contact record will always have to have an ID and have to have a created at, but this will also have the favorite. So if I hover over here, you see it is saying this and this, so this has all of these as well. Okay, so what the pick does is basically it passes this, meaning it passes this plus this, and it says from this pick only the favorite part. So what it will do is it will only pick the favorite and put this contact as a favorite. So if you look here in the favorite, this will basically be a like in this contact there will be only favorite property. So if I remove this and press dot, you will see that there's only favorite here. What will happen if I say pick favorite? I think it's or not here. Let's see, favorite, and then also pick contact record. Let's pick avatar as well. I think there's a problem. Yeah, wait a minute. So it is from here, it is trying to pick the favorite. There's a way that you can actually pick more, pretty sure about it. Let's see if I now do as avatar and then contact dot avatar. Okay, so what I am now saying is from this, which contains, I mean, all of this plus this, pick the favorite and pick the avatar and make that those two type are a part and parcel of this, right? So you can understand TypeScript as just a contract. So it need not have this avatar at all. It's just a contract that yes, your editor will understand that no, there's also something called avatar present here as well. Now if I remove this contract, right, it will tell you that the contact never contains anything like avatar, right? So that's about it. Okay, now just one more thing in terms of TypeScript. This does not mean that your contact cannot contain avatar. For example, whatever you're going to pass in this favorite. So let's see here, if I go to the top and I'm passing this as contact, right? Contact contains first, last, and so many things. So contact also contains avatar, right? So this definitely contains, I mean, avatar. What it simply means is for this particular purpose, which I mean for the purpose of this function, right, contact need not do anything that requires anything other than the favorite. So the contact so the contract for this contact inside this function should only have the favorite, right? That's all it is, because we are not utilizing anything else. But if you want, I mean, let's console log the contact completely, and we'll see that it will have pretty much things like which you think is not there either as well. Yeah, because you're trying to follow the TypeScript tutorials, which is bad. uh, don't learn TypeScript through tutorials. There's one thing that you can do. You can watch a crash course of Brad Traversy, which is on TypeScript. It's I think it's a 1 hour long video, right? And after that, just start using the TypeScript in the application that you're trying to build. That's about it. So once you have the basic set, and trust me, you don't require more than that, whatever is shown in that video. Once you have the basics set, after that, just start building it. And the best way to actually, and anytime you actually like, anytime you kind of like become stuck, you can actually always hover over the things, like so, and things like that. Pretty sure things like that you can actually hover. For example, if you hover, hover over this form, right? VS Code will tell you this form's exact type. So you don't even have to remember anything. You can just copy paste this thing from here to, if it is required. Otherwise, it will not be required in the first place, right? So that's how you actually work in TypeScript. That's basically the entire scenario of every single dev. Trust me. And that will never go away. All right, so now if we click on one of the links, we get nothing new. So, but I just want to see one thing. If I click on this, let's go here, and I have made sure that I am console logging that contact. So this is a data layer. I mean, this is my Google Analytics. You don't have to worry about this. Okay, right now it is not. Yeah, even though I am saying, I mean, we are utilizing it, we are not doing anything in this. We have to somehow put this here. Let's see how we can do it. Here we go. Nested routes and outlets. Since Remix is built on top of React Router, it supports nested routing. Okay, so if it is built on React Router, then for sure it is going to be using outlet. Yeah, it is going to use the outlet. So maybe where can I put the outlet? Let's see. Okay, copy this. Copy this. Here we go. And if I come back to this, come here, refresh, here we are. But let's see, inspect console, and here we go. See, that's what I'm saying. This is a contact. I mean, this is the console of the contact, right? And if you look here, this contact does contain pretty much everything. It's not like it is not going to contain things like avatar. It contains it, right? Apart from favorite, it contains pretty much everything. The thing is, the TypeScript is not for, it's not a actual TypeScripting. I mean, it's not a, like, for example, in languages like Go and Rust and C and C++, Java, you have like static typing, right? This TypeScript is not actually that. It simply says that, okay, when you use the contact variable, right? When you use the contact variable in this context, it is saying when you use the contact variable inside the favorite function, as per the contract, you will only be using the favorite part of it and not any other value. Or to say, inside this favorite function, the contact does not require any other value except the favorite, and that's about it, because it is not even used. So there's no reason for me to actually give pretty much every single type from here, even though it is very much, even though it is not present, right? We can still have avatar, and it will be perfectly fine if the contact will contain avatar. Yeah, avatar. So you can check this out. Refresh. And as you can see, this is the avatar, right? So there's a difference. This is not saying that contact only contains favorite. It is saying inside this function, the contract between this function and that contact, whatever you're passing, only requires contact variable or contact object to have only one property, which is favorite. You don't have to worry about anything else, and that's about it. Because inside this function, we are not using any other property of contact, only the favorite. Hope that is clear. It was just a little bit like trip on the TypeScript end. Okay, and that's why I don't like TypeScript, to be honest. Yeah, it's a syntactic sugar, and it is required. I mean, the as the project actually increases, it starts helping a lot, because you don't have to worry about it. What you have written there, what you're passing, it's basically, since it's a contract, so the moment you press dot, your IDE or VS Code editor starts completing all the things. So that's the only thing that I think when I use TypeScript, nothing else. And if you're working in a team, then it becomes very necessary. It becomes quite necessary, because then everybody is actually telling other person, okay, when you use this variable that I have created, or this function that I have created, this is a contract that your usage should abide by, because these are the things that I am actually making available inside this. So that's all it is, right? It is not at all a typing thing. It's not that way, because otherwise, when I use, though I would love if it can do that, but I don't think it is. Otherwise, what I simply wanted to do was, the moment I use something like contact dot, say, first name or avatar, right? In real typing languages, what happens is the entire program crashes, because technically it should not have this avatar at all, right? But here it will not be the case, because this is just a syntactic sugar. All right, now the child route should be rendering through the outlet. Okay, client side routing. You may or may not notice, but when we click the links in the sidebar, the browser is doing a full document request for the next URL side of the client routing. Yep. So for that, we have to change this to a href to link to. Okay, let's go here. Let's change that. Let's make this as link, and this is going to be 2. This is going to be link 2. Let's go back, refresh. Now it is working just fine. I mean, this is changing without any refresh. Cool. Then we have, you can open the network tab in the browser DevTools to see that it's not requesting document anymore. Cool. If I'm doing this all, this is my 1. Okay, if I go to 2, even then it is not requesting anything. So what about the page resource? Hmm. All right. You're welcome, Dipanshu. Okay, so this is my root. This is my contact, individual contact, loading data, URL segments, layouts, and data are more often than not coupled, tripled together. We can see it in this app already. List of contacts. Okay, because of this natural coupling, Remix has data conversion to get data into your route components easily. The two APIs we'll be using to load data, loader and use loader data. Okay, first we'll create and export a loader function in the route and then the render, and then render the data. Export the loader function in the app route. Okay, okay, uh, okay. Let's see. In this app, I have to export const loader, which is an async function. We're going to get the contact, and then we are going to return the JSON. Let's do export const loader, which is an async function. We're going to get the contacts, which is going to be await get contacts. Okay, and then we are going to return the JSON from here to contacts, right? Yeah, and then whatever has like, so basically whatever is being returned inside this loader is actually can be retrieved inside this app function using this hook, which is a contact. Yeah, it has to be inside this. So contacts equals use loader data, and then I think I can just make this as, yeah, let's see. So now inside this nav, let's copy this whole thing. It is basically checking the length, and then inside the UL it is mapping the contact inside the li, and then making this as the case, which is similar. Let's see, this has to be here, and that's about it. So let's go here, let's refresh, and we are good to go. Cool. So that's also good. Type inference. You may have noticed Typescript complaining about the contact type inside the map. Let's see. Yes. So we can do something like type of loader, and then this should be okay. Okay. We can add a quick annotation to get type inference from our data. I just want to check something. If I do contacts dot, let's see, contact 0 dot. Okay, so I don't know whether this is like correct or not. Like for instance, if I say delete contacts 0 dot say avatar, and then will I have that? Yeah. If I had say console.log like this will throw me an error for sure this is undefined, and if I go here, yep, it is undefined. So undefined and defined, so that means even this is very weak sort of scenario, right? For example, I can just go ahead and do for let I equals 0, I less than okay, I less than contact dot length, then I can say I plus plus, and I can just keep deleting the contacts of I, and let's delete the avatars, right? And then even then I will have the avatar right here, which is like, let's go with this first one. Pretty sure I can do that as well. So let's go with the first, and if I delete this and I go here and I refresh, see, everything just went blank. Everything went blank, and that does, I mean, even though it went blank, this contract still thinks that it has the first. Otherwise, see, if I click this, it still has the first, because it is trying to like get the type of this contact record rather than what is actually being modified or returned here. Again, there's a weak link here. I mean, anybody can do any sort of like modification here with this particular thing, and technically it's just bad. And if I console log this entire contacts here now, let's see where it will. First of all, I want to see where it actually will console log. So if I just refresh, okay, it is not here, it is here, and as we can see, there's no first anymore, right? Which literally means that this is not exactly what should be the, like, to be honest, what should happen here is that if I have removed something from here and then I'm returning this, I mean here, it should not be showing the first at all. That's what I think is the better approach rather than this. Okay, so I can just comment this out and let it be for now. Let's see where we are. URL params and loaders. Okay, yep. Click on one of the sidebar links. We should be seeing our old static content page again, with one difference. URL now has a real ID for the record. True. Remember that contact ID is a part of the file name at this. That means this is basically my contact ID. These dynamic segments will match dynamic changing values in that position of the URL. We can, let me just make it like this. We can change values in the URL params. Okay. These params are passed to the loader. Okay, where are we? These dynamic segments will match dynamic changing and dynamic values in that position of the URL. All these values in the URL params, or just params for short, these params are passed to the loader, okay, with keys that match the dynamic segment. Okay, for example, our segment is named contact ID, so the value will be passed as params.contact ID. Okay, and this will be done inside the loader. So inside the async, I can do params. Yep, and then I can restructure the params. Okay, all right, so let's do that only then. Inside this, I will come to like inside this loader. I will export the const of loader. I will say async, then it will be params, then this will be contact. Let's see what it is. And this will be contact like this. This will be JSON like this. The params will be implicitly of any. Let's see. Okay, now we have to use this inside this function of contact. Let's use this and make it like so. Remove this, and then this is possibly null. Okay, let's see that. Validating params and throwing responses. Typescript is very upset with us. True. Now this is Alex, this is Paul, this is Kent, Ryan. All right. So Typescript is very upset with us. Let's make it happy and see what that forces us to consider. Okay, the first is loader function arguments. Okay, so right here, loader function args, that's one. And then it says invariant, which is tiny invariant. First problem this highlights is we might have gotten the params wrong, name wrong, between the file name and the code. If you change the name of the file, all right. This thing will not, I don't think it will happen if you're using something like WebStorm, because if you refactor rename, it will do the entire trick. I may be wrong, but that's what happens in at least the Next.js part. Okay, so first problem is that invariant is a handy function for throwing an error when a custom message when you anticipated a potential issue with the code. Okay, tiny invariant. Let's see what this is. This is the first time I'm looking into it. Tiny invariant. It is published a year ago. Okay, it takes a truthy value, and this should not throw, and if it is a falsy value, then this will throw. Okay, a value which is and then you can actually have a function as well. It will be a condition, then it will be a format, then ABCD, something like that. I don't think I have to install it. Let's see inside this package JSON. Do we have the tiny invariant? Yeah, we have it. Cool. So let me just right here, I'll say invariant, and I'll pass params dot, let's see what it is. Remove this, come back, params dot contact ID. Okay, contact ID, and then I can say missing contact ID. So there's nothing that is wrong here. This is so much cooler. Like, maybe I should be using this. Quick fix. Okay, I should be using this in Next.js as well. Invariant, tiny invariant. Yeah, this is much better. All right, so apart from this, hopefully everything is done. First problem is done. Next, the loader type of loader now knows that we got the contact on null. Maybe there's no contact with that ID. This potential null is cumbersome for our component code, and the TS errors are flying around still. Okay, so we can just have optional maybe. Or is there any better way? So inside the loader itself, if there's no contact, let's throw this. We could account for the possibility of the contact being not found in the component code, but the webby thing to do is send a proper right 404. We can do that in loader and solve all the problems at once. So rather than saying like this, which will remove the error, but it will then send a blank page which will be bad, we are saying if there's no contact in the first place, if you don't get anything here in the first place, let's simply return a new response, which is basically the body null init. I hope this response is like not found, then it is status. Okay, let's see, not found, and then we have the status of 404. Let's see what this response is, because if I am correct, this looks like a web API response. Web API response. This is a response web API. This is a response object. It is a body which is not found, and then there's a options. So in body I can send the blob array string, which is what we are sending. You can also send a form data, data view, and things like that, readable stream, URL search parameters. And in these options we can have status, and option is an object. This is so cool, yeah. This is so cool. I mean, basically I don't have to worry about, like, for example, I don't have to search this remix doc for knowing what this is, because it is, it looks exactly similar to this response, which is a web API response. I just thought that because the name is similar, so it has to be this. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. Now if the user isn't found, code execution down this part stops and the remix sends an error path instead. Component, yeah, let's try this. Let's say Florensis, and this will be application error. Reading first is not possible. Let's see. Doesn't work that way for some reason. Okay, not return but throw. Let's throw this. Cool. But it should be not found, right? Rather than this. Then we have data mutation. Okay, so loader is basically data getting, so it's kind of like a get fetch scenario. Data mutation is basically, so now I think the form will come in handy, right? This form, let's see, and also this. And also this. We'll create our first contact in a second, but first let's talk about HTML remix. Emulates HTML form navigation as a data mutation primitive, which used to be the only way prior to the JavaScript Cambrian explosion. Don't be fooled by the simplicity. Forms in remix give you the UX capability of the client rendered apps with the simplicity of the old school web model. Okay. All right. While unfamiliar to some web developers, HTML forms actually cause a navigation in the browser. True. So if you are doing a GET request, so what happens in normal HTML form GET request is, to be honest, HTML is called hypertext for the reason because it contains two hypertext element. One is anchor tag, which is a tag, right, which has href. So that's what the hypertext means. It's a link, to be honest. And then later in HTML 2.0, what got introduced was the form element. So a tag is always how to put it, let me just put it this way. So for example, you can think of it like this. Let me just make it like this. Hopefully I know what I'm doing, but anyways, here's what it is. So imagine that you are a user and user clicks on a tag, right? What happens is the a tag, this makes the browser requests to the href source in that location, in that server, right? Then the server responds back the HTML media itself, okay, and the browser, or let's say the client, renders this response in the browser. So for instance, if you check here, if I just say inspect, if I go to the network, remove this as throttling, you can think of it like this. Let's refresh this whole thing. So this page, right, this page is kind of like a get response, and if you check here, this is a get response to this particular location in the server. Then this server will send a response, which is this entire HTML media itself. If you can preview it, you will see all of this is the response. There's no CSS here. This is just HTML response with all the links and everything, right? And if I click on this, say link, so to show you that, if I go back to this, I'll just make sure that this link is, for a moment it is a tag, and this is, for a moment it becomes href again. Let's go back to this, let's refresh, inspect, network, and this. Now if I click on this, well, first of all, you see that it sends this get request on the anchor tag click, and in the response it gives you a complete HTML itself, which is a media file. It's a hypermedia, you can say, or a hypertext. So, and it gives you this itself, right, without any styling. So anchor tag is one of the HTML tag, you can say, which is in normal browser itself. I should do it like, should I just paste it like this? This is much better. Okay, HTML anchor tag is one of the two hypertext or hypermedia tags, or you can say in HTML 2.0. The second is basically, or what makes this HTML as a hypertext markup language, and the second is form. So form has two types. With anchor we can only do the get, but the form can actually do get as well as the post. So when you do a get request with the form, all the name, right, all the names becomes a part and parcel of the query parameters, and that's where the entire form actually redirects. And second is, if you do a post, so that post actually sends a request to the backend server, and then that backend server redirects the page. It has the responsibility of redirecting to another page itself, which should also be present on your end. So that's the normal functioning of you can say HTML form. Now with the JavaScript, what happened was we always used to do something called or event.prevent default, which stripped off all the web browser or web form functionality out of the box, which comes out of the box. And then we had to do a lot of shenanigans over the time, like abort signal in Axios or fetch and things like that to mimic everything. Yeah, including the multiple send request and only sending the last one. That's something that actually happens by default in HTML web form. Okay, while unfamiliar to some web developers, HTML form actually causes navigation in the browser just like clicking a link. The only difference is in the request. Links can only change the URL, while forms can also change the request method, true, and the request body, true. Without the client-side routing, the browser will serialize the form's data automatically. This is basically what happens, and send it to the server as the request body for post. Okay, and as the URL search params for get, this is what I meant. URL search params, the query params. Okay, you see it says without the client-side routing, browser will serialize the form's data automatically. This is what we actually do when we say json.stringify in the fetch request. This is what we are trying to actually mimic. Remix does the same thing, except instead of sending the request to the server, it uses client-side routing and sends it to the routes action function. Okay, we can test this out by clicking the new button in our app. Okay, method not allowed. Okay, let me just put something here. John Snow. When I click on enter, this is for the search param. When I click on new, this is different. Okay, creating a context. Remix sends us 405 because there is no code on the server to handle this from form navigation. Okay, creating context. We'll create new context by exploring an action function in our route. When the user clicks the new button, the form will post to the root route action. Okay, create empty contact, then JSON return. Okay, it's basically the same, except now it is going to be a function. I mean action. So this is action, async. Create empty contact, then we are returning the JSON and we are returning the contact. Okay, that's it. Go ahead and click the new button. You should be able to see a new record pop in the list, which is no name. All right, let's check this out. We have to do it like this, and here we are. Okay, but we are having, this is tricky. Like for example, I am saying this is my form, which is by default sending the action to this page's action. So when, and this is a queue, so this is a different form for searching. When I press the enter, it works. This is a different form, which is a button for the submit of new, which is a post which goes inside the action. And then you have in this contact you have different form, which is edit. It now has this action of edit, and here it has this action of destroy. Okay, let's see. The create empty contact method just creates an empty contact with no name or data or anything, but it does create a record promise. Wait a second, how did the sidebar update? where did we call the action function? Where's the code to refetch the data? Where are use state on submit and use effect? This is where the old school web programming model shows up. Form prevents the browser from sending the request to the server and sends it to the routes action function instead of the fetch. Instead with fetch. Okay, so inbuilt it is doing that. It is basically sending the request to the routes action using the fetch. Routes action function instead with fetch. Okay. In the web semantics, a post usually means some data is changing. By convention, Remix uses this as a hint to automatically revalidate the data on the page after the action finishes. Okay. In fact, since it's all just HTML and HTTP, you could disable JavaScript and the whole thing will still work. Instead of Remix serializing the form and making a fetch request to your server, the browser will serialize the form and make a document request. From there, Remix will render the page server side and send it down. It's the same UI in the end. Either way, we'll keep JavaScript around though, because we are going to make a better user experience than spinning favicons and static documents. Yeah, so I think what basically the flow is like this, to be honest. This is our root. Basically in Remix, what I understand is happening is basically there's three function. There's basically a render or view thing, which is basically how it's just a React thing where we are exporting our function, say app. This is a React component, and this is responsible for the view logic or the UI logic or how to render the things. But the data is being acquired for this particular render. Say for we want the contacts, right? This contact is basically coming from, I mean, we have to fetch this contact for this HTML render. So this get request or this data fetching we can do inside the loader function inside the same page, and then we can return it back, and then we can use this hook called use loader data to retrieve what is being returned from this loader. So that's the data fetching part. Now anytime there's a form action, like forms is happening here, or at the click of the button we are saying method is post, and what it should do, it should simply say new. So anytime there's a post request, some sort of like an action is now happening. So the form action redirects, rather than in traditional web it used to happen that you have to provide a thing called action, and it is in that URL, in that action URL, the entire thing got submit. The browser used to serialize the entire data and it used to submit it. Here, however, what will happen is everything that is present inside, say the moment I press this button, the post request happens, and this is captured by this action itself, this action function, and then it is getting, I'm just simply creating a new one right here, and then we are returning back the contact again. And when we return back the contact, right, the moment the action is like done, Remix comes and revalidate the entire data. Revalidation simply means refreshes the entire data on the same route. So basically then again this loader will run, and then this will run one more time. So let's see, put it like so. So if I say loader ran, that's one, and then I will say here app ran, and here I will say action ran. Okay, we'll go back to this, we'll come to the very bottom. Now I will simply, basically I can simply copy this link address, come here and refresh. the moment I refresh in this console log, it says app ran, right? App part seems to be running in the client end, and the loader part seems to be running in the server end. And loader ran runs in the server, then the app ran also runs in the server, and then it's basically the SSR scenario. Like in Next.js, everything runs on the server, but only the console whatever is inside the get static props or in the server component in the new architecture does not run on the client. Here is the same. Whatever is inside the loader or whatever is inside, I think the action will only run on the server rather than on the client. Okay, so that's number one. Then what will happen is there's no database, so this entire thing actually went away. So if I click on now, say, and by the way, this is running twice is because of some strict mode, which is the React thing, not their fault. Now if I click on this new, this ran multiple times, right? Because multiple times like revalidation must have happened. But here, see, action ran, right? Action ran happened. Then we are basically, what happens is action is basically a post thing. It does that. Then to revalidate the data, the loader ran, and we are again getting the data again. So it's the same thing. They are revalidating every time there is a post request that is happening. They are trying to revalidate the entire page in itself so that the data comes from the backend itself. The latest data comes from the backend itself, which is like, it is, the question then becomes, do you need in this architecture a client side state management solution or not? I mean, the client side global state management solution or not? Things like Justand, Jotai, Redux toolkit, things like that. Hopefully no, I don't think so. And the next thing that this said here was that this entire thing will work. Yeah, it's a page server side, so, and send it down. Yes, that's what is happening. The next thing that it said was that you do not need the JavaScript, to be honest. So you could disable the JavaScript. So let's do that. I can go here. I can come to the very bottom. There should be a disable JavaScript somewhere. Here it is. And then I will simply empty the cache and reload. Okay. If I see, the reason I know that this is actually JavaScript is disabled is because the page is being reloaded. If I click here, page is getting reloaded rather than link, which is like no reload. So there's no JavaScript, but it is, the entire app is still working. That means if I click on the new, the page reload happened and the entire app is still worked. Cool. This is good. This is good. Okay. Now if I just disable this, I mean enable it, refresh it, remove this, and okay, I don't know why this became like 3 of them, but now there's no reload. And if I put it like this, somewhere it is actually caching it out for sure. Okay, we can also check this out, key how this will work as well. Okay, updating the data. Let's add a way to fill the information for our record. Okay, just like creating data, you update data with the form. Let's make a new route. And okay, I don't like this way of like whatever they are doing. Create and edit component. the weird underscore in contact ID. By default, routes will automatically nest inside routes with the same prefix. Adding a trailing underscore tells the route to not nest inside. Okay. Read more in the route file naming guide. I'll do it later, but what I am thinking of is that if I would have done something like dollar contact ID dot edit dot tsx, it would be the same file. So this is different. Nothing we changed. Let's see what this is all about. Dot basically says slash. Okay, dynamic segment is denoted by dollar. Okay, so all the routes that starts with concerts will be child route of concerts.tsx and render inside the parent routes outlet component. Hmm. 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 Oh boy. So, for example, if the URL is concerts Salt Lake City, then routes, the UI hierarchy will look like root, then it will be concerts, then it will be city, and concert.tsx is going to be a layout. This looks like Angular. Like in Angular you have something called router outlet and child after child after child, things like that, it happens. So basically what it is saying is that if I go inside, say, concerts and city, then you can think of it in Next.js, you can think of it like this. You have inside the, yeah, it's kind of like this if I'm correct. So I can think of this like so. In Next.js, it will be, say, within the app folder, right? We have, say, what is the name? Concerts. Let's put it this way. So within the app folder, we have the name of concerts, right? And within this, we have something called page.tsx and also loading.tsx. So this is my layout and this is my page. But if here within this concerts itself I have a folder named city, then this will also have a page.tsx and this will also have, say, not loading, layout.tsx. Same here, not loading, layout. So basically what is happening here is that if I am in this page, then to put it inside this page or this layout, I have to mark, I have to use a component called outlet, which will by default go here, things like that. Hopefully I'm understanding it correctly. We'll see where they go with this. So let's see. Let me just copy paste this entire thing. Basically what it's doing is it is importing the loader function again, JSON form user data invariant. It is getting the data, it is getting the loader is checking the contact ID, and basically the same thing. Then it is an edit contact, which is getting the contact. Then we have the form, which is an ID of contact form. Method is post. This method of post should go inside this route itself, where there is should be an action. But yeah, let's put it like this. It has a bunch of editing thing. And now click on the new record, then click on edit, and we should see this route. It's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah, this is, let me just put it like this. And inside here, if I check on the edit button, it is saying this action is edit. So basically it will take me to /edit of this route. So basically it should be contacts /contact ID, whatever my ID is, /edit. And when that happens, then this page should show up. So I need to see why this should show up. Like, what's the issue here? When I go to say concerts, why should this show up? Okay, wait a minute. If I directly go inside this, then what? Okay, so basically if I say this, contacts index.tsx, and then I say export contact index contact like this, and I export the default of contact index and go back, refresh. No. Okay, so most likely it will be this, right? Let's refresh. What happened? Okay, run this now, refresh. So this is index contact, and if I don't have, say, if I rename this, if I just do this, then what will happen? Okay, and if I have nothing, so what about this? What about this? Just contacts.tsx. Okay. So contacts.tsx is acting like a layout. Sorry. In the absence of which we were directly going here, as you can see right here, and even we are changing everything because this is acting as a layout and it has nothing. So technically everything that you see here is like, it is never reached. But if I put it like, say, outlet like this, then if I go here, refresh. Now that outlet is available, which is okay. There is some sort of a confusion in terms of understanding what is what. This is a layout, and if this is present, then we can directly go inside the layout. For example, if I directly go inside this, nothing is here, but if I then click on this, the layout is going to be this particular thing, which is contact ID, because there's only one of them here. But if I press on edit, now the layout becomes, well, whatever is this inside this right here. And let's see, I want to see one thing, this one, nested URLs without layout. Sometimes you want a URL to be nested, which is edit, but you don't want the automatic layout nesting. You can opt out of the nesting with a trailing underscore on the parent segment. Okay, this is very tough, to be honest. This is much worse than whatever the Next.js team came up with. The Next.js layout, Next.js file routing was better in pages router, and in the app router it became kind of like, okay, verbose, but this is a nightmare. I am not able to understand what is what, to be honest. This is not good. Think of a trailing underscore as a long bit at the end of your parent's signature, writing you out of the will, removing the segment that follows from the layout resting. This does not make any sense. It makes things even worse. Yes, Next.js is much simpler and more powerful as far as I can see. This is like bare bone. So in terms of stability, this is much better if you understand the web and if you understand everything. So that means you can actually remain in one remix version and be done with it. I hope so. But yeah, in terms of file based routing, that is much simpler. Nested layout without nested URLs. If I go here, then I'm going inside routes and index. Okay, which matched route is this, layout is going to be of this parent. In the login, I will go inside this, the layout will be of index, layout will be of this. Okay, register, okay, salt, this is the layout and this is okay. There are too many of them, to be honest. This is not, we'll see. Whenever I will do things like later, I'll see what I can do. And then updating the form thing. So we have the action function argument, we are getting this action. Let's just copy this, come to this edit, and like I thought, it's the same thing. The form action of this part is basically coming for this is use contact, this is redirect. So since I know the web, I understand what they are trying to do, and hopefully it will make much more sense to me later down the line if I can just figure it out. Like, I find this way more easy than whatever the Next.js does in terms of their revalidation and everything. But in terms of file routing, that is better. But let's see what will happen. I'll just assume certain things. For example, this is my form and I am doing a post request and the ID is something. So I have a bunch of inputs and then I have a button for submit. Now what happens is, and this is a button for cancel. Now what happens is, the moment I press on this submit type button, a post request should go to my defined action. What do I mean by that? I should be telling you things like this. For example, in normal form, what actually happens is, let me just make it like this. Okay, so in normal form, what happens is you have a form which is, as you can see, it's an action. So this is used to happen in before the JavaScript thing scenario, or even if you work in PHP, this is how you will do. So you will have some sort of like, say you're trying to do editing, right? So let's call it as contacts underscore edit dot php, right? This could be a file where you want to send this entire thing, right? Or to be honest, what you actually do is you provide this URL. Let's say this contact edit, or let's say this edit. So anytime, and then you define also the method, which is, let's say, post. And then let's say you have a button which is going to be of type submit, and then you are going to say submit. Okay, so what this will do is the moment you press on submit, because you have done it like slash edit, so slash is basically your root layout. So for example, if you're on http local host this, right, this is your domain. So then what it will do is it will send whatever the data is in this form. And when I say data, I mean, let's say there's a text of input, and this is, say, name, and this is not this, let me put it like this. Let's say this is contact and this is contact. Okay, so this name, this name, meaning this contact, is the key which contains whatever you type here, which is your value, right? So there's a hidden thing called value. Initially it remains as this, let's say, but when you type, this value automatically changes. Okay, this thing called default value nowadays, right? Rather than selected value. And then whatever you type, you actually make that value property as that. So the moment you actually click on this submit in traditional web form, this data in a sense, you can assume it like this. There's a data which will have a key of contact, and the contact will contain, say, code testing. Okay, this is the value that I have typed here. So let's say it is code testing that I typed. So when I click on submit, this data will go to this URL in the manner of post. Okay, that means the request will be of post, and request dot body will be containing a form data, not this object thing. It will contain a form data which will be basically have a contact followed by the value of code testing, whatever we have typed. And then to retrieve this form data value, we have something called get inside this form data. This is one of the function, and then we provide this key, right? Things like that. If I'm correct, this is what happens. So this can also be molded in the JavaScript as, let's say you have form data, you can have new form data, and then you can also have form data dot, I think it sets or append, then you provide the key followed by you provide the value, and so, right? And basically in JavaScript terms, what you get the value from direct data, which is just JSON object, or which is just JavaScript object. But in traditional form, you directly have the form data out of the box, and whatever this name is, this name variable automatically becomes the key, and whatever the value or whatever you type here in these inputs becomes the value of this name key, and that gets sent to this particular URL path with the request of post. So here then you basically create a file or API route, or basically a file, so that it intercepts this particular request. Then you check the method, and if the method is not post, you say the 4 rows 5, the method is not allowed. But if the method is post, so in PHP you have something called request get or some post or something like that, if I remember. I mean, I did it 4 years back, but something like that. And then you retrieve the data using these form data or whatever the language oriented function is to retrieve the body from the request. So that's what you basically used to do. Now here what is happening is, if I'm correct, it is mimicking that. But since we are not, and yeah, if you don't provide any action URL in traditional form, what happens is the entire post request or the get request used to go on the same route. So if I don't provide any sort of like URL, let's say if I am in the old school way of posting that. Yes, so let's say if I am in PHP, so that's what it says. The PHP is a spaghetti code. So basically what used to happen in PHP was that you write something like this, which is PHP. I'm not going to install anything for now. And at the very beginning, this is your, let's say, PHP. But then here it used to have some sort of like a document thing. Then you used to have some sort of like a action, and then action used to have nothing, but you have a method of say post, and then you have input of say text, where you have the contact, and the contact goes like this, right? And then you have say a button, which will be submit, and then you will have type of say submit. Okay, things like that. I will not do this. And then the moment you actually post this, whatever the data is here, it actually used to go in the same route. So then here you have something called, now don't put me on the position because it's been 4 years since I did any PHP, but there is something called request. If I'm correct, there was something called request underscore method, something like that, equals we used to say post. Of course we used to wrap this around if something like that, and if that's the case we used to go ahead. Otherwise we used to say like method not allowed or something. There was also some way of doing this using PHP, if I remember. So method not allowed. Otherwise we used to compute the we used to perform the sanitation, if I'm correct, sanitation and validation, then insert the data inside the DB, then redirect the page to the desired location. So these are the 3 functions that we used to perform if the things actually work, right? Some sort of like a sanitation and validation, sanitization, not sanitation, what I'm even saying, sanitization and validation. Then there's some sort of like then whatever, if these passes, then insertion in the DB, and then when this is complete, then we have to simply redirect the page to the redirect URL. This is the entire flow, traditional flow, right? So hopefully they do the same thing. Sorry. So let's see. So when we come to this action, it is checking this params and request. Request is getting from this thing. Now it is first validating this, whether it is coming or not. I don't think it does anything sort of like a sanitation, which in normal thing you will do. But then it says get all the form data from this request. I don't think this is JavaScript. This is maybe remix thing. I have to check. I don't remember this inside the JavaScript. But anyways, we get the form data. Then we are basically saying from the entries of the form data, get me an object. So this is basically converting this into the JavaScript object where you have the key value pair. Then it is saying just simply update it using this ID. And this is doing some sort of like an updation. So here it is getting all like getting the contact, doing some sort of like a validation again, and it is setting it up. And then it is redirecting, which is what I said. You have to, at the end, you simply redirect. So we are redirecting to the new contacts and this ID, right? And basically what will happen is if I simply say, like, I already have done it. If I say something and click on save. Okay, let me just go back, refresh. Now let me say something, click on save. As we can see, it is redirecting me to same contact ID, but the latest data is right here, which is cool. So this is like different sort of collocation. I mean, this is like saying ki there's one route. It is in this page you do the view. It is in this page you do the fetch. And it is in this page you modify the data. And the reason why I believe they are doing it, because this way they can actually figure out exactly based on the URL itself. They can figure out where you need what data, at what URL you need what data. And then if let's see, if I can figure out what the data is required, say in /contacts, and I am rendering a page, say /contact/something, some single contact, and there's a data change, then I know exactly how many, based on the URL itself, URL nesting itself, I know what data to refetch or revalidate. So I have to revalidate maybe the data in contacts route, and I have to revalidate the data in this contact/ID route. And yeah, that's where my mind is actually. Except easier on the eyes and maybe less here. Yeah, this guy writing this tutorial. Okay, so Rand Lawrence is the one who made it work. So mutation discussion, it worked, but I have no idea what is going on here. Let's dig a little bit. Okay, look at the form elements. Yep, it's the same thing. Notice how they each have name. Without JavaScript, when a form is submitted, the browser will create a form data and set it as a body of the request when it sends it to the server. As mentioned before, Remix prevents that and emulates the browser by sending the request to the action function with fetch instead, including the form data. Each field in the form is accessible with form data.get. Okay, for example, give the input field from above. You could access the first and the last name like this. Okay, since we have a handful of form fields, we used object.form entries to collect them into an object. Yes, I understood completely fine. Cool. Then we are simply saying, aside from the action function, none of these APIs we are discussing are provided by Remix. Okay, so this is different. So for example, this is my request API, and request has body, request has cache, credentials, destination, headers, integrity, method, mode, redirect. Okay. Request has form data. Request also has JSON. Request also has text. Sorry. This is good. Object, after we finish the action, note the redirect at the end. Action and loader function can both return a response. Makes sense since they received a request. The redirect helper just makes it easier to return the response that tells the app to change location. Without the client-side routing, if the server redirected after the post request, the new page would fetch the latest data and render. As we learned before, Remix emulates this model and automatically revalidates the data on the page after the action call. That's why the sidebar automatically updates when we save the form. Cool. But basically I understood kind of like, well, the extra revalidation code doesn't exist without client-side routing, so it doesn't need to exist with client-side routing in Remix either. So it is basically emulating everything which is web standard. One last thing, without JavaScript, the redirect would be normal redirect. However, with JavaScript, it's a client-side redirect. So the user doesn't lose client state like a scroll position or component state. Cool. Redirecting new records to the edit page. This is the route. Now that we know how to redirect, just update the action that creates new contact to redirect to the edit page. Okay. This is an action. This is a redirect. Let me go to this route. Basically what we are saying is, rather than return, you return this. Yeah, why not? This has no ID for some reason. For this is okay. Now if I go back to this, refresh, click on new, now I'm directly here. Then I can say John, then I can say snow @John snow, then I can say http. Let's see what they have. Let me not put anything here, just save. And here we are. This is Jon Snow. So hopefully the Jon Snow is somewhere here. Here we are. Cool. Now active link styling. Now that we have a bunch of records, it's not clear which one we are looking at the sidebar. So for that we have the nav link and existing elements. Note that we're passing a function to class name. When the user is at URL that matches nav link 2, then isActive will be true. When it's about to be active, the data is still loading, then is pending will be true. This allows us to easily indicate where the user is and also provide immediate feedback when links are clicked but data needs to be loaded. Yeah. Why not I just simply do this to link itself, like let's see. Yep, let's simply do it like this. Why not like this? Okay, but if I say it to be nav link, then it becomes part and parcel of this nav link itself. Okay, make it as nav link. Now if I go back in this thing, I simply come to this part, refresh, and pretty cool. Okay, so navlink is different from link. Navlink has it is active as well as is pending passed down with it. Okay, global pending UI, you have use navigation. As the user navigates the app, Remix will leave the old page up as data is loading for the next page. You may have noticed the app feels a little unresponsive as you click between the list. Let's provide user with some feedback so that the app doesn't feel unresponsive. Remix is managing all the state behind the scenes and reveals the pieces you need to build dynamic web apps. In this case, we'll use the use navigation hook. So use navigation hook is for adding of the global pending UI. Okay, so we are basically saying in the details, we are saying simply add it. and this is use navigation itself, which is a global pending UI. So let me put it like this. Oh, right here, let me put it like this. Let me also check what is the case here. Yeah, so use navigation is directly giving me the navigation. So use navigation, and then if I go to this fresh there, what exactly happened? In our case, we add the loading class to the main. Okay, technically speaking, I should be doing this with the network, going with the slow 3G, then refreshing this entire thing. Now if I go here, okay, now it will look some sort of like better. All right, now in fast 3G itself, it should show. Cool. Cool. So deleting the records is basically fine. If we review the code in our contact, we can find the delete button looks like this, which is an action of destroy. That means it will go inside /destroy. So that means if we, I don't think we need require /destroy, but maybe. Let's see. On submit, it says confirm and do this. Note that action points to destroy like link to form action can take a relative value. Since the form is rendered in contact ID TSX, then the relative action destroy will submit the form to contact ID underscore dot destroy, or this is the destroy when clicked. At this point, you should know everything you need to know to make delete button work. Maybe give it a shot before moving on. You need a new route, yes. An action, add that route, yes. Delete contacts from this, redirect to somewhere safe. Okay, let me just do it then. I will create a new file which will have contacts dot, then it will have contact ID dot destroy dot tsx, and I will simply will be having some sort of like an action here which will be of async type, and then here I will have, I don't know, I can remove this. Let's see, this is a param. Am I sending anything else? Don't save. Here it is. This is my response confirm. If it is this, I'm saying submit. Let's go with the params. Let's go with the request. Let's also go to action function arguments and make this as type. Here I will say await the delete contact with params dot contact ID. We will also be having invariant of params dot contact ID, which will have missing contact ID, and this will be await. Then we will return redirect, and it should simply return back to this. Hopefully it should work. Let's see. Okay, let me just refresh this whole thing. Remove this as no throttling. Okay, now if I click on delete, click on OK, and we are back. Let's refresh. Let's refresh. Delete. Okay, that is done. So it is just working fine. The problem is I don't know, maybe I can do it like this. I have a simple problem, which is I'm not passing anything here. So how is it even deleting? Let's see this. This is an action. It is saying this. Navigate to record and click on delete button. I'm still don't know why this works. Form prevents the default browser behavior by sending a new document post request to the server, but instead emulates the browser by creating a post request with the client side routing and fetch. The form action destroy matches the new route at context destroy and sends it the request. After the action redirects, Remix calls all the loaders for all the page to get the latest values. This is a revalidation. Use loader data returns new values and causes the components to update. Okay, index route. Now this is my index route, which is what I was thinking of. Let me just make it like this, and here I will just make it like this. But now I will have index routes. Let's see. Let's copy this, paste it, and let me just refresh it. Okay, this will not work. Delete. Okay. And this is remix. Cool. But for some reason this used to come back all of a sudden. I mean, John Jensen is still here. Jon Snow is gone. Well, no more blank space. It's common to put dashboard stats, feeds, etc. at index route. They can participate in the data loading as well. Cancel button. On the edit page, we have got a cancel button that doesn't do anything. Add a cancel button, which is this, which is navigate. And click handler using navigate. Okay, in this edit, I have a cancel button, and that button is doing literally nothing now. Let's go to use navigate. Now when the user click cancel, they'll be sent back to one entry in the browser history back. So edit, cancel, we are back. Lorem ipsum, and save, edit, something else, but this time I'll press on cancel and we're back. Two more features to go. We are on the home stretch. URL search params and get submissions. All of our interactive UI so far have been either links that change the URL, or forms that post the data to the action function. The search field is interesting because it's a mix of both. It's a form, but it only changes the URL. It doesn't change the data. Let's see what happens when we submit the search form. Okay. Since it's not form post, Remix emulates the browser by serializing the form data into the URL search params instead of the request body. Loader function have access to the search params from the request. Let's use it to filter the list. So in the root, we are going to have this loader using the request. Okay, let's go back to this here inside the root. Is it the root itself? Yeah, it's the root itself. Let's simply go with this. We can remove this. We can also remove this. We can get it here. And then we will have this as well. Now, if I go back, refresh. Now, if I say Alex, enter, now we have Alex and those two. Because this get, not the post, Remix does not call the action function. Submitting a get form is the same as clicking a link. Only the URL changes. This also means it's a normal page navigation. So basically we are maintaining the like for example, if I press this is my URL state, which I'm utilizing using the request URL. And then based on this URL, I'm getting the search params as Q meaning to whatever is the value of this Q key. And then we are awaiting it, get contacts. We are getting some sort of like a contact using some sort of resolving get all query. If it is match the sort either in this or this, it's getting it back. If I don't have this, and here it is. Okay, now synchronizing URLs to form state. There are a couple of UI issues here, UX issues here, that we can take care of quickly. If you click back after the search, the form field still has the value you entered, even though the list is no longer filtered. If you refresh the page after searching, the form field no longer has the value in it, even though the list is filtered. Okay. True. In other words, the URL and our input states are out of sync. Let's solve second first and start the input with the value from the URL. So Q is returned. We are getting the contacts as well as we are getting the Q. And then we are going to say default value, which is what I mentioned. It is one of the how to put it, it's HTML form thing, HTML input thing. Sorry. Then we have the input field will now show the thing. So let's refresh. Q is not defined. What do you mean by that? Q is defined right here. I have to get this here and then I have to refresh it. So Q is defined and whatever is here will become there as well. If I refresh, it will remain there. Cool. Now the second is now for the problem one, clicking the back button and updating the input, we can bring the use effect from React to manipulate the input's value in the DOM directly. So if I click on the back button, I mean, it is already working. Don't understand the problem. See, everything is already working now. Submitting forms on change. So don't see the problem here. Like if I'm here live, everything here is live. So for example, if I click here, oh, okay, if I click here, then this should go away. but I think I got the gist of it, right? Of course, I can do a lot of things, but this much is like, hopefully this is good. Then we can have a bunch of other things: searching, loading, bonus point, fading out the main screen when rendering, and managing the history stack. We can have replace and submit. We can do a bunch of things. And there's also optimistic UI. I know what is optimistic UI, but it's basically a way to actually do client-side action. So just to explain what is optimistic UI, and then I'll just simply stop it. If I go to my Twitter in this code dusting, right, and then I'll see, say, this post, right? This is the post. Let's say I want to like it. So before that, if I click on inspect, and if I click on network, and if I click on offline, now there's no network. But check what happens. The moment I click on this, this will actually first increase, right? That is an optimistic UI update. That assuming that when I click on this, when a user clicks on some action, the UI state updates immediately while it waits for the backend to give the result of that particular action. If the result succeeds, nothing is changed in the UI state, but if it fails, it is reverted back to the old UI state. So check this out. 350, then all of a sudden it gets back to 349. Okay, and if you check this out here, I don't know whether I can show you this or not. Let's see. If I click here, see the like went and it failed, right? Everything actually failed. That's why it reverted back. Now if I remove this to no throttling, then if I click on this, see, my like is also there. If I remove it, it is there. If I click it, it is there. So that is what this optimistic UI is all about. That's about it. And yeah, hopefully this is it.